Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Guile here, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series. It's top pro level custom 1v1, not ladder, but more or less the same thing. Action this afternoon. First of all, in relation to the average Joes last week, always splits the field a little bit, the average Joes. Some people love it, some hate it. It's a little bit like Marmite, and some of you poor saps out there have never heard of it because you don't live in a country that has it. And just order it on the internet. It probably won't be made in Britain, so it'll taste like dross. But anyway, that's an epic tangent. Back to what I was talking about. I did something I never ever do, and that's ask you guys' opinion about something. Shock horror, I know. I asked you about 30 minutes in who you thought was going to win because it was a free-for-all. It was a tough one to call, obviously, because it's just that extra ambiguity factor. But you guys did really badly, even so. It was only 7 of the responses at 30 minutes. Only 17.64% of people guessed it right. That's terrible. What are you guys up to? I love it. And that's assuming that everybody who guessed it right wasn't cheating. And I know there was a false hero out there, because there's always one, isn't it? It gets to the end of it and goes, I'm so clever, and puts it in. Yeah, I know there's at least one of you out there, whoever you are. Whoever you are, stop doing that. That's not a good personality trait. But anyway, that's really fun. And hopefully we'll get more free-for-alls sent in the future. Get me some pro-level free-for-alls, guys. I want some of that. If you see a good replay like that, bring it my way. I'm excited by the prospect of you guys getting more things wrong. Alright, on to today's game. As we said, custom 1v1, and that action is going to take place on the ditch. I'm ready, you guys are ready, and the players are sure as hell ready. So let's go on over to the game zone and see how they're going to get on. Cha-ching! Ka-ching! Instant loading, that's what we like to see. Let's take a look at our players. We've got JaggeAppliance over here on the left. Misclicked and gone cyber, and bless him, but we won't hold it against him because that would be gross, and he's a nice bloke. Opening first land in burgundy red, and his opponent on the other side of the map, Turinturamber, going a much more attractive UEF. Opening first land in a not so attractive mellow yellow. But oh well, his decision, it's all good. Let's go to split screen so you can examine their grey, sandy and fungal openings. There we go. We can move it in, and you can see both of them starting first land and both producing about a bajillion T1 P-gens before queuing up the next factory, and not, incidentally, throwing down any mexes into the equation. They're either going to start with the mechs production with the engineers that roll off the boot, or they're going to go somewhere else with them. And it looks like they're going off for reclaim. This is going to be interesting. Where's the nearest reclaim for Turinturamber? It's all the way up here, and there's a lot of it. Lots and lots of reclaim on this map, so you could see them hanging off and waiting. So JaggeAppliance is going to go first land, second air. Turinturamber is going to go land, 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 air with a bajillion T1 P-gens in the middle. But I'm curious as to how finely he balances. He's only got 30 mass left in the tank. Is he going to get locked? Oh, he just runs out, and then look at that. And he still hasn't built a single mex. That is the sort of margins we're talking about. Now his bank, his mass tank is filling up nicely, so he still doesn't have to worry about building any mexes. He can carry on concentrating on power. That is solid work on eco balance, and that is why these guys are really good at the game, and you and I are just terrible. We will never be that good, and I say we because none of the pros really like watching Gailcast. I know why, because I miss far too many things. It's partly because I'm dyslexic, partly because I'm also majorly tunnel vision, and partly just because, well, I'm quite lazy human being. I don't like to move my eyes around more than I have to. It's just the way it is. But look at all the T1 P-gens. That's an obscene amount of T1 power. It'll all get recycled before too long, as soon as they're up to T2 tech as well. But how much has he got there? So he's got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, like 13 T1 P-gens for Turinturamber before he started work on that second factory, and then goes straight into the third, then starts building a few more before going into the air factory. Is JaggeAppliance going to start on his air? Yes, he is. He went 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So either 14 apiece or 13 and 14. There we have it. JaggeAppliance going for a third factory after that. That's going to be a land factory, which is not too surprising. There goes the air factory there for Turinturamber. Boom, back to full screen. Let's take a look at where we're at. So Turinturamber scooping more mass in the early game at 3.4k versus 2.2k. If we look at the reclaim side of things directly, yep, so there's an extra 1,000 mass that's gone into Turinturamber's coffers, but they've all got essentially the similar sorts of mass, especially on a map like this. Excuse me, still suffering the dregs of my cold. A map like this, which was one of the original GPG maps, so it will be well proportioned, well measured, proper tournament style. Virtually no major advantage for either player. I suspect, I'm guessing that. I'm assuming they did their homework. I could have that horribly wrong, but the first aircraft are out. Couple of scout planes there for Turinturamber, one for JaggeAppliance, one Inti now for Turinturamber over the central island, and Turinturamber already pumping out transports. One ready to go, a second, I missed out one altogether there. He didn't actually go, it looked like he changed it up, so he had a second one queued up, and then he changed that to another scout plane, and then started work on another courier after that. He's loaded up 4 engineers onto that transport. Not sure exactly what he's waiting for, but he's going to be, I imagine, going to pick up one of these other redundant starting locations. You can see it, transport's already away there for JaggeAppliance, so his expansion slightly quicker, more efficient than Turinturamber. Not sure exactly what Turinturamber is waiting for. He has managed to, I thought he'd locked onto that scout plane for a minute. The interceptor was in the area, but alas not. Out goes that courier, heading due south to that position, I would imagine, dropping off all 4 of the NGs. There they go, and then he's going to make his way back. This is a little aggressive. One engineer coming over the river now, or the ditch rather, for JaggeAppliance to land on Turinturamber's side of things. Where is the ferry location? Right by that little mechs over there in the south. A couple of mechs actually, just over the other side of that plateau. So Turinturamber will want to keep his scouting up. Hopefully he'll spot that early. I say hopefully. Hopefully for him. I'm completely impartial. Except, of course, I always want UEF players to win. But then I think JaggeAppliance, I might have that wrong. Is he a Brit? JaggeAppliance might be a Brit, in which case it's a tough call today for me. It really is. Or I could just pretend to be like a proper caster and actually be neutral. That's probably the best way to, the most professional way to do it. Another courier out for Turinturamber, this time heading northwest. The drop-off location up over to the other starting point in the north. What's going on in terms of eco side? So generated eco, we've got a 10 mass differential in favor of Jagged. Jagged with the more efficient start at the beginning of this one. 27 to 35 now in terms of total mass accrued. However, we've still got a 3k advantage for Turinturamber, so Reclaim playing into that a lot. And it's probably down to the hoovering up of this little group of NGs up here. We've still got some big rocks by the cliff face. Lots of little ones still to scoop as well. But you can see just how much mass there is on this map, which is a good thing too, because 20k map, 2 players, they've got a lot of ground to cover and a lot of mexes and things to pick up. So having that extra reclaim on a map like this really does help to kickstart things. Otherwise, you know, you can expect to be waiting 20 minutes really before the first major battle breaks out, which doesn't make for the best viewing experience. And there, believe it or not, there are maps like that. Can't think of them off the top of my head, but there definitely are ones that are more conducive to an entertaining viewing experience, put it that way. Forward land factory at the edge of the ditch there for JaggeAppliance. Not that far forward, pretty near his main base. He's got another one down here as well, and starting work on a naval yard. Anything from Turinturamber? No naval commitment. And of course, JaggeAppliance going Cyberin, so plenty of gender-confused destroyers at his disposal. Could make life difficult for that main base of Turinturamber that's situated so close to the water's edge there. And look at that. So that little incursion by that one NG got the land factory up and running and produced 3 Mantis out of it. However, engineers did drop the Turinturamber nearby, and they've produced a T1 PD, and that should be a hold, you would imagine. He's also working on some land factories. Got spam coming down from his southern base as well. They'll be wanting to lock this out ASAP. Now, who's building or queued up to build these land factories closer to the water? It's these 3 NGs here. They've got a mechs, 2 more naval yards. So JaggeAppliance, it would seem, at the early stages of this one, committing pretty hardcore in the direction of naval play. So that was a ground fire that the turrets put on. Good thing that that's not energy related, which it probably should be, being as it's a railgun. You might ask, why is he doing that? Why is it ground fire? Well, presumably when he started firing, he had scouted it with a plane, but didn't have the radar up, and so didn't want to lose the signature and wanted to make sure he took the factory down. So he set that to ground fire, and presumably the constant rattling away of a railgun in the background doesn't offend his sensibilities. I, for one, don't agree, but that's just me. T2 land factory operational there for Jagged, and that's at that little forward base just over the river from where we've been looking, back in the sort of bottom right hand corner. Courier's still hard at work for Turinturamber as well, dropping off NGs to that bottom right location. Back to who's winning on the eco front, and the choice is pretty stark. Look at that, 123 versus 76. We're not too far away from a 2-to-1 differential in favor of Jagged. So Jagged, much more efficient opening, doing much better on eco. What's happening power-wise? Well, it seems having a major power fall off, an upgrade or something. He's trying to get his T3 reactors in play. Hugely costly. He's still got lots of mass to spare in there from all of the reclaim. So until that goes online, there it goes. So now we're going to get the proper readings back. And it's 5.2k to 3.5. So Turinturamber ahead in power. But, of course, mass is where it's at. It's going to give him an advantage potentially with air production. But need a player going for that in a massive way right now. He does have T3 air up and running. So we've got T2 on the ground. We've expanded nicely. We've got T3 air. And we're only just 10 minutes in to this. Everything moving at an alarmingly quick pace. It's really not that surprising because, of course, as we mentioned before, all of the reclaim that's dotted about the map. So the northern set of manufacturing facilities there, 6 land factories for Turinturamber, just kind of pumping out spam now. They're making their way around the top of the ditch and will be coming down upon JaggeAppliance from the north. Similar stream of spam moving in the other direction. 2 rogue Mantis wailing away on engineers and factories down here. Radar down and out, as is the engineer. Those factories finally kick into action, but they're producing engineers. A detachment, though, of that spam is ordered in to intercept. That will be the end of those Mantis. And those little engineers we saw with that build queue earlier did manage to complete the 2 naval yards, and so far they've got 3 of the 6 proposed land factories up and running. 4th soon to be operational any minute. However, they have been rumbled, and Turinturamber moves in to intercept with his strikers. There go the engineers, and none of these, except for one, the land factories are producing anything. It's working on 1 Medusa. But that will be an ousting there. Meanwhile, Wagner's amphibious submersible tanks scooting much faster than you would think submersible tanks would along the ditch bed there. Avoiding all of that spam, probing, looking for a route in somewhere sensitive. couple of Wagners across the ditch up here as well. A huge alpha on that, so it takes down a PD. Ouch, though. In comes some Lobo fire. Not even sure where that's coming from. That must have been what he was engaging there. There he is. One Lobo remains. Wagner will deal with that, but there's more units just to the northeast nearby. How many naval yards are we talking now for JaggeAppliance? We are talking 9. 9 naval yards to 0. Turinturamber is making no play into the naval game in any way, shape or form, and obviously he doesn't have the same advantage in navy as Jagged has. He can't get his destroyers out up on land, but he has got that lovely range capability on the cruisers, the governors, to pin down everything down here if he gets control of this, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen. This is an early win on the naval side of things. Turinturamber deciding he's not even going to compete. Oh, yes, he is, but far too late. He decides to start a naval yard and barely gets 100 hit points into it before that whole area is locked down. He's got torpedo bombers out into the air there. The odd Stork kicking around, and a Strat as well. Ambassadors, a couple of them. Where are they rallying to? They'll be heading out down this way with their own ASF escort. Goodness me, look at all the naval factories. That might be overkill, considering you've already won the naval game. He might not be aware of just how far ahead on that side of things he actually is. Mass things have evened up quite a lot. 283 versus 300. Strap bombs away, going after the T2 mass harvesting options down here. Oh, in come the ASFs from JaggeAppliance as the Strats turn around for another solution. Where are the escorts? So one Strat bomber shot down already, but then Turinturamber's ASFs get stuck in, and the other one's allowed to roam. There goes another Mex, and Turinturamber pulls ahead. Now 318 to 286 on generated eco. We have some ground fire capabilities though. We've got a bouncer. And that strap bomb gets shot down. Now, this is what he's going to be facing. This is the problem. Salem's rocking into the bay near his base. It's only a short hop from there to sprout those walkie-walkie, naughty legs and push on towards the base. But why not counter with broadswords when you've got an air advantage? Guile condones this message. In come the T3 gunships. Not going to hang about though. They seem to be pushing north, more concerned about these Wagners which have pushed around the top of this main base. Or forward base, I should say. Interestingly, he hasn't decided to assault that. It's looking pretty wide open. All we've got in here at the moment are engineers and one or two T1 PDs. There are more on the way, but there's definitely gaps in the security down here. He figures there are easier pickings elsewhere. This particular attachment were wrong in that assumption as they run headlong into these broadswords, but of course those broadswords just would have been dispatched further north anyway, so it's a bit of a moot point. Meanwhile, these Wagners have managed to find a vulnerable T3 mechs right at the back. I'd imagine the broadswords are inbound. There they are. Flight to the Valkyries. Can they get there in time to save the T3 mechs? Here they come. They open up. I think that T3 mechs is going down personally. It was on pretty poor health. One Wagner down. There's two. There goes the T3 mechs. Just a few seconds too late to save it. And that actually hurts quite a lot. Turinturamber back behind again now. 339 to 354. These little fine margins will be what dictates the game going forward. But look at the level of development. Just the sheer amount of units coming in from the east. The amount of spam from JaggeAppliance, playing much more aggressively. Turinturamber playing a little bit more defensively, utilizing the turtley aspects of UEF, or at least I expect him to, because he's not managed to win so far on map control. He's definitely behind in that respect. In fact, you could say he's probably sitting on about 25% of the map, maybe less at this point. It's looking like a pretty leaky defense. He'll be happy about the use of those broadswords, having up until now had relative air dominance. Let's just see how many ASFs he's got on the field there. 46 for Turinturamber. Jagged will be trying to respond to those early threats, but he's still behind. 29 ASFs for him. So air advantage still lies with Turinturamber for the time being. The question is if he falls further behind in eco, which he's not doing actually. He's keeping up with Jagged. 368 to 369. It's neck and neck, and both of these guys have operational ecos, no power lockouts or anything like that. But T3 bricks on the field now. Not just on the field, they are already amongst Turinturamber's structures, causing problems. Looks like they're heading back into the water now. Going to find another place to engage from. A little group of Wagners have strolled out of the water and taken down that hydro right in front of Turinturamber's base. But if I was Turinturamber, it's those Salems. Any Salem build-up, that's what I would start to worry about. And if JaggeAppliance manages to get on level pegging, that's when things, level pegging on air superiority fighters, that's when things start to fall apart. You can see we've got a couple of Salems now, and you see just the range that it gives you. An ability to hit back at the ground units with relative safety. And onwards they go. Nuke launcher complete in the base for Turinturamber, and that's early, and he goes straight for a second one as well. He's got shield gens queued up to protect it, but at the moment that is vulnerable. A lot of build capacity immediately going to work on that second nuke launcher, so Turinturamber well aware that he's down on map control, switching to standoff tactics. He will now be committing to the turtle, trying to make himself as hard a walnut to crack as possible, while lobbing things long range at his opponent. It's a risky strategy. Might not have been what he intended to do from the outset. It's risky because it's quite a spread out section of map he's got to defend. He needs basically to hold on to all three of these bases. If he loses one, it gets overrun, it falls into Jagged's hands. I reckon that's probably it. Wow. Is that legit or is that reclaim? The question is there. With reclaim, it looks like Turinturamber's jumping up to the 500s. Without it, it looks like a 4-8 something for JaggeAppliance. I know it's showing 5-2-1 at the moment, but I reckon that's reclaim. Although it's been on that for a long time. Maybe it isn't. Certainly in the high 480s, whereas Turinturamber's sub 400 might even be in the low 500s, so that might actually not be reclaim related. If that's the case, JaggeAppliance has just leapfrogged his opponent massively. So all of this extra territory he's got is now starting to pay for itself, and Turinturamber's going to have to do something about that, because that surely is unsustainable. And it's a massive, massive group of Wagners turning up right on the doorstep of Turinturamber's base, pushing into the main base. Couple or certainly one T2 reactor bites the dust. Engineers with lots of T1 PDs throwing up a valiant defense here, and we've got Janus coming in from the skies as well, just torching the area. That could have gone a lot worse for Turinturamber. He'll be relatively happy with that outcome, but he's got that second nuke launcher online, and he's 50% done on that first nuke. So if he can score a decent strike with those in the next 5 minutes or so, could stand a chance of evening this one up. In come the Medusas into that northern base for Turinturamber. Foolishly straying straight into the range of the point defense, which cuts them down. They do manage to take out a couple of the PDs, but still 2 left operational. JaggeAppliance now with a much more bulky looking group of air superiority fighters lurking around the map. Where are we up to now? So we're up to 90 there for Jagged, to 81. So JaggeAppliance actually moves into the dominant air position, and that was the one place where Turinturamber had a little advantage. And Turinturamber's lost that little nook there south of the plateau, and we've got bricks streaming in that way. We do have the odd Percy lurking around. In fact, we've got quite a few of them kicking around back here. All of these land factories upgraded to T3, pumping out Percivals now. As we know, they are unmatched in terms of firepower, even against the bricks. Ideally, you don't want to come in single file, though. You want to present some kind of formation, but he's just sending everything in as quickly as possible. If you look at the mini-map, though, look, Turinturamber's territory is just getting mobbed right now. It's just burgundy everywhere. It's like a piss up at Downton Abbey. And even a couple of Salems in the mix as well, but they won't last too long against the Percys. Lots more bricks coming in. They go. God bless the Percys. If it wasn't for them, UEF really would be weak on the ground. And there's the first of the nukes. We'll cut back to that little fight in just a second once we see what happens with the ICBM here. Out it goes. Not being used for point defense. Looks like it's coming to the southern base down here. Any SMD? Not that I'm aware of. How much could he take out? Well has he placed it? He'll want to hit all of the core mass, take out the P-gens and as many of these factories as possible. Ideally, you want to be somewhere about there, I reckon. That looks like where he's headed. Wow! Toasty, the entire base taken out. T3 upgrade on Turinturamber's comm complete. That's a lot of torpedo bombers built for what I can discern as no good reason. Perhaps a mistake. Strap bombers, though, brought in to target those strategic missile silos. And this is the one they want to take out because this is the one that's about to have another missile ready. No penetration there. They get shot down by the defending ASFs.
Strategic launch
and here come the Salems. You can see all of those cruisers, great for air defense, but not able to strike at the main base. It's just out of range. Second nuke out. This one you'd imagine is going to the northern base. Actually looks like it's coming out over here to these 3 T3 mexes, and that actually does have strategic missile defense, but it's a long way from being loaded. Surprised he didn't take out here. Well, I suppose there are fewer mexes up there. you've got, actually, sorry, not 3. This is a starting point. You've got 4 T3 mexes here. One of them offering adjacency bonuses to brick-producing factories. That will no longer be the case once this missile connects, which it's about to. Radiological alarm. Other base just went up, sir. More air factories planned for Turinturamber, who's managed to hold on to that fusion reactor and the nuke silo nearby. Slight gap in the shields right there. Probably wants to get that covered pretty sharpish. What have those nukes done? Well, they've kept Turinturamber in it. He's now got 5 mass advantage. That's what it's done. Overall, though, look how much in that intervening period he slipped about 90,000 mass behind from the early game advantage that we saw him had. 27 minutes gone, and I want to say it's all to play for, but it's not looking great right now for Turinturamber. Those 2 nukes have leveled the field, but all they've done is destroy. He hasn't gained any territory. He's got no way of getting in to capitalize on that. That's just going to get scooped up and redeveloped by JaggeAppliance, who I imagine will put down strategic missile defense as a very high priority to prevent that happening again. Novaks on the way, and do you know what? I used to give UF players a lot of jip for going Novaks, but it's been buffed and it's not the useless pile of garbage that it once was. It actually makes quite a lot of sense. A little bit of clink hammer action coming in from the main base there from Turinturamber. Slightly offended by the lack of flanking T1 PGens, but that's just a symmetry issue for me. But look at all the strap bombers brought in. Did they take out anything? Yes, they did. They took out the northern nuke silo. All the strap bombers get shot down, but there is another one right there. That's the next one that I think would have been loaded. Didn't get a chance to look, but look at that now. Complete air superiority handed over to JaggeAppliance. He provoked the air fight, which is what he wants. And now he's going to lose some outlying T3 mexes as well to roaming bands of bricks. Pushing in from the ditch, and he's in danger of being cut off from his southern base as well, as JaggeAppliance is pushed out with looks like 1 T3 engineer and a merry band of T1 that are just spamming up T1 land factories as quickly as they possibly can. Meanwhile, more Salem's causing problems with their range capabilities, but still getting rained down on with that clink hammer battery. So much going on and so fast in this one. 28 minutes, and the action has been everywhere. This is what you've got to love about the pro games. Turinturamber definitely hanging on by the skin of his teeth, going full UEF, full turtle power. He's about 40% done on that Novaks, and that's quite important because that's going to give him a chance to hit back at all of these spread out T2 and T3 mass pumps belonging to Jagged, although they're not called mass pumps, are they? Mass extractors, that's right, for Cyberans. Just realized that actually all the time we've been using the generic Cybran term for mass extraction buildings, structures, the mass extractor, not the mass pump, or indeed whatever the Aeon use, or the sound that your bowel makes after a large curry to represent the Seraphim name. Turinturamber, I want Scathis. You're not going to get it unless you capture an engineer. Quite like to see Scathis just to see what it would do to you and your UEF turtle at this point. And an experimental's completed, and that will be the Novaks. There goes the satellite. Launched Far slower than any satellite in history. And hanging far lower than any satellite in history as well. 30 minutes gone. It's all to play for as long as your name's JaggeAppliance. Turinturamber in major trouble. 160 mass behind. 170 mass behind even. And even 1k power behind. It's just not going brilliantly. Another nuke out from Turinturamber. Novak's heading in the same direction. It looks like it's this southern base once again, and it's going to be another 4 T2 mexes and a recently constructed Guardian SMD, but still not loaded, so that will connect. Standoff tactics for the time being, keeping Turinturamber in it, but it's not looking that groovy right now. 523 to the new figure of 523, apparently. Didn't seem to want to move the needle in the slightest. That's bizarre. Perhaps I looked up at it too slowly. Certainly looked like 4 T2 mexes bit the dust. You'd expect to see more of a movement than that. In come these strap bombers. They managed to hit a shield gen before getting taken out, but still that other nuke launcher operational. And he's going for a second Novax. So Turinturamber going max Novax as those other Revenants tail off and look to hit other more vulnerable targets up there. I think that is exactly the right maneuver. But what I like down here for Turinturamber is the sheer amount of firepower he's stacked up. That T1 incursion looks ferocious. It's got some Salems in there to assist and what have you. Lots and lots of factories you can see in the background. But it's not getting through that wall of Perseus, which are now advancing. This is going to be an ousting from Turinturamber, which will give him just a little bit more breathing room. And he's starting work now on a Fat Boy as well. It's going to make it even harder for JaggeAppliance to break in down here. But he's going to have to pull some of these Perseus back. There are lots of bricks down here, although maybe not, because the bricks saw a Ravager and went, no! Turned around and ran away like brave Sir Robin. We do actually have a couple of Perseus there, and they're regularly being churned out by those 4 T3 factories there. But that withdrawal is great news there for JaggeAppliance. I think he could have risked that. Where is the Ravager? It's in the center. There are some Clank Hammers, of course. They're still taking fire from those. 2 Ravagers under shield coverage over there. If they can get inside that shield, take those down, they could have wrecked this base completely. And they would have held on to some of this as well, because this would have had to have withdrawn. They would have kept the pressure up. It would have been what I would have taken out. I mean, it's risky, sure, but what's life without a little bit of risk? And meanwhile, T3 mexes getting beaten on by that satellite, trying desperately with all these engineers to tank the damage, but I don't think they're going to manage it. Takes a while to fire that big old primary weapon. Oh, I say primary weapon, it's the only weapon they've got. Yes, of course, the pilot in there has a handgun that's not going to do an awful amount of damage. It'll survive this one, will it? I think it will, but the next one's going to get it. But still, look at that. Still 170 odd mass behind. That is enormous. And Disruptor T3 static artillery queued up for JaggeAppliance, along with defending or protecting cyber and shield gens. That is going to alter the dynamic of this game somewhat. We have our own nuke launcher for JaggeAppliance as well at the back of this shield coverage over here. 4 anti-nuke missiles in there. There goes the... No, Fat Boy's still going, so that'll be the second Novax launching over here. And that's when it starts to get interesting. When you start stacking Novaxes, they become much more of a threat. They can start cutting through shields, causing problems in heavily defended areas. Of course, there's no way to shoot that satellite down. You've got to get in and take that structure out. So tricky to do. See how much JaggeAppliance has spent on strap bombers already, just trying to take out the nuke launchers, and he's only pulled that off with one of them. The other one's still operational and about to be done on the next nuke as well. New clash forming down here. Lots of bricks. Quite a few Percys, but maybe not quite so many. But even so, it's enough to make you go, no! Run away in a strange, crab-like manner. Yes, Cyberman would build a contraption that ugly. Hideous things. And the engagement or encounter we thought was going to be so exciting turns out to be dreadfully dull. So going after the cruisers now. Yes, he is. Doesn't take long. You can see why it's so much more of a useful weapon than it used to be. A lot of extra damage output. Says no to that shield. Ouch. T3 reactors going down, and now you see there's a lot of unshielded targets here. JaggeAppliance responds in kind with a nuke of his own. And that's going after the southern base. Do we have anti-nuke? Yes, we do. Is it loaded? No, it isn't. So unless I've missed another one somewhere, that bottom base, which has been so masterfully defended up until now, is going to bite the dust. But he called it already. I mean, he's moving generally all of his units out of the two side bases that don't have nuke defense. All of the mobile firepower remains intact. Bye-bye bank of clink hammers. The Ravagers remain. That's interesting. So defensively, that's still intact. That's actually a horrible nuke. The two Mexes, one T3, one T2, at the back, still operational. So Jagged, I'm guessing, wanted to catch some of the units, knew they were going to move out, wanted to catch some of those in the blast zone, but ending up not getting any of those and missing out a couple of Mex kills as well. So hindsight, should have assumed Turinturamber would have avoided that, because it is a 20k map and that's a bit of a distance to cover, giving him time to evac, and as a result should have just gone after the static targets. And that's not going to end well for the Salems. Cyber and Destroyers versus Fat Boy. That fight's only going to go one way.
Strategic launch detected.
Another nuke out, this time from Turin. And where is that going? Back over here. And still no nuke defense, so that's going to get taken out. And that one more blast from the Novax down here. That's another T3 Mex, which is good for Turin because he's still a long way behind. It's going to allow him just to keep his head above water, just about keep his eye in the game, or hand in the game. Boom! It's a thing of beauty. Well landed nuke. All four mechs is down. New experimental complete. That's a Fat Boy. And Turinturamber's working on some T3 artillery of his own. Duke going up. Currently unshielded. How's the Disruptor getting on. How similar state of affairs. Still in the red. Going to turn yellow reasonably soon. There's a lot of build capacity on that for Jagged. So many mexes still to pick up here. And it's pretty exhausting when you've got something like this and you have to go around continually rebuilding mexes and things in your territory. And just to take out the shield gen as well. There goes the T3 mechs. Vulnerable ion reactor over there. And then a few more targets as well. Any more Novaks on the way, I wonder? See in just a minute. A lot of Medusas being stacked up there by these 4 facilities. But just look at it. That is a tiny proportion of the map that Turinturamber is sitting on. 40 minutes gone. I'd like to be saying this is anybody's game, but it's an uphill battle now for Turin. JaggeAppliance power locked himself. He had, I think. I don't believe it. Is that all down to... That can't just be down to the nukes and the Novaks. Current reading actually has JaggeAppliance behind. It's now 477 to 423 in favour of Turinturamber, thanks to his decision to go Novaks, and he's just going around now, hoovering up T3 mexes. They're getting replaced, but very slowly. So that's a pretty
Strategic launch detected.
astonishing comeback. Out another nuke from Turinturamber. It's going southwesterly again. Wants to pick up these 4 mexes for the 3rd time. All up to T3 have just been completed. It's nothing quite so demoralizing. Feels like all of that APM goes to waste, all for nothing. I mean, obviously it's not, because you've got all the benefit up until now of that extra mass, but... Yow! From 447 to 312. I've never seen a mass change, a mass lead change, or invert, sorry, as quickly as that. That's utterly insane. Down to 288 from 512. And JaggeAppliance must be getting concerned right now. This is not going well. He has gone from being in complete command of this game to being completely on the back foot. He's almost at half the eco now of Turinturamber. He won't know how far behind he is, but he'll suspect after that passage of play. This could be instrumental if he can get this online quickly enough, but this is sapping up a huge amount of his resources. 7,300 of 10,000 done. How's that Duke coming along? Well, a little bit slower. Turinturamber up to about 50% there. 8,100 of 15,000, but the Duke much more sturdy. I never realised that before. The Disruptor, only 10,500 hit points compared to the Duke, which has a full 15k. Significantly more hardy than the Cybran version, but that is the essentially the UEF passive, is extra hit points, extra tankiness. These all would have been T3 mexes not so long ago. Now they're 1 and 2. And he's completely backed away. There's no pressure or ground pressure coming in from Turinturamber now. He knows that he can't. Jagged knows he can't crack this nut right now. Run, little boat, run! He will be missed. I can't believe how this game has turned around. And it really is. I mean, the nukes have been very important for Turinturamber, but it really is the Novaks as well. It's so demoralizing. It saps all of your APM, having to rebuild all around the map, whereas compared to Turinturamber, he can click attack commands and just leave them running, queue up a whole list of targets, and get on with something else. It's a huge advantage. Bricks find some engineers napping, but it's going to cost them a few of their own teammates as they stroll into Fat Boy range. Torpedo bombers for Turinturamber, just a couple of them, handful of them, picking off some strays in the water there. Not overcommitting anything, but there is the first, what looks like the first and second disruptor shell crossing the map over towards Turinturamber's base. He's nearly finished his own Duke. There's a vulnerable fusion reactor at the back, and that's what he's targeting potentially for the moment. Takes out a whole buttload of planes with it, that first shell, and gets about 40% of the hit points off that ion fusion reactor. Did it again, but then switches up target, or it's just a horrible firing variance. And that Duke is complete. Taking aim. Now, it might be that the Duke went online second, but Turinturamber can pull his two Novak sites, get them to work on the shield along with the Duke fire, and that does give him an advantage. You can see all of the Cybran shields being spammed up and upgraded to try and protect that artillery piece, and this is important as well, because yes, it now becomes about who breaks who, but at the same time, it sucks in those Novak satellites and prevents them from going after the mexes, and will allow JaggeAppliance to recover in the outfield. Failed strap bomb strike though from Jagged. That was costly and unproductive. So many shield gens around here, lots of coverage. It's going to be hard to take that out. Now, what's the bet? We start to see these mass totals for JaggeAppliance recover, but the shield gen around the Duke is down. Turinturamber looking vulnerable for the first time in a while. Moves in with his mobile parashields to help shield the Duke. But the firing variance on the disruptor, the randomness, not doing him any favors. Control Ks of wall sections and T1 PDs in various parts of the base happening to clear room for more shield gens to try and keep these disruptor shells out. But look what's happened. The combat everywhere else, more or less, on the map has ceased. This is now about base-to-base wars. And who breaks who's shielding first. And right now, I just don't know. JaggeAppliance isn't funneling any more resources into... Oh, I lie, he is. He's just started another one back here. Can he actually reach everything from there? So that yellow line, that's the range, and that's not going to do it. That is, I mean, he can hit on some of these bases, but he can't assist the forward disruptor in engaging the main threat, which is Turinturamber's main base, those Novak satellites, the Duke. So that's an interesting decision, but he had to go, I guess, where he felt he could complete it, and maybe he feels that if he can set that to work on the other bases, that will alleviate some pressure as well. Personally, I would have found a way to get another one online up here and utilize the shield coverage I'm investing in up front. I think that would have been the play. Second Duke under construction, 2,000 of 15,000 done already. Everything that is not currently shielded is getting hit right now, which makes me wonder whether that's not intentional. He's no longer trying to break the shields, but he's just trying to pick off what he can. Fat Boy skirting along the edge of the water with accompanying Percival, Parashield and Skyboxer support. Dips the top of that massive chassis above the water for a moment to open up on these cruisers. Sirens making a run for it. No sweet songs from them today. "50 minutes gone. Still, despite the two satellites and the Duke, it doesn't seem like he's able to break through there. He's actually switched up. He's going for vulnerable buildings around here, and he wants to take out the SMD. That's a wise decision. Oh, blinks on just in time to keep it safe. You can see the engineers moving over here. I'm wondering if they're going to start spamming up more shield gens to try and protect the Guardian. That SMD's absolutely crucial. He can't afford to allow a nuke to sneak its way in. Look at what's gone on. 474 to now 445. JaggeAppliance has caught himself right up on the eco side of things. Couple of bricks look like they've been airdropped in by something and just dumped.
Strategic launch detected.
Vulnerable T3 mechs there. Did he take out the Guardian? No, he didn't. That nuke has come out from JaggeAppliance. Did he take out something? Nope, that's a fully loaded strategic missile defense silo. And that nuke, unless it's going to drop short and go after the Fat Boy and the associated units, is going to get shot down. Almost feels like a bit of a hit and hope at this point. Ah, now the nuke silo's vulnerable. There it goes. There goes the shield gen. Shield blinks on once more. Second disruptor about 30% done. Is that second Duke online? Yes, it is. So we've doubled up the artillery firepower from Turinturamber. Those bricks we saw earlier hit one T3 mechs, moving in on another. It's going to even things up a bit more. They can scoot in around there and challenge two more as well, potentially. No ground units in the area for Turin. Oh, and a core mech's down. Just situated outside the edge of the shield. Going to have to go to split screen. If I can remember the right button. Still focused on the Guardian. See on the mini-map those two bricks still engaging the mexes north of Turin's base. Look like anything's encroaching on them. No, it isn't. Oh, would you look at that third Duke queued up. Engineers working to repair that SMD. They need to get more shield coverage up. They're planning it. Can they manage it? Satellite's still hovering. Still nothing inbound on those two bricks. See them working away there. Small contingent of bricks in the bottom right hand corner moving around. Bottom of the ditch wide open for Percival attack. A few bricks in the water there as well. But that Fat Boy and the main group of units seem to be moving in on that little spot that's changed hands a few times during this game. Turinturamber, that was power locking. Surely he's on 370 according to this, which means he's way behind again. So mass leads changing, and that's down to that little brick incursion taking out three mexes just wandering down there. Finally they were dealt with thanks to that broadsword. That has put him behind once more. Some territory being gained there just south of the plateau from that Fat Boy. You can see on the mini-map. But only T1 mexes down there for JaggeAppliance. That's not going to hurt him too much. Still a 63 mass differential now in favor of JaggeAppliance. I can't believe this game has changed hands again, but JaggeAppliance still in a very vulnerable position. I think it's fair to say that next Duke is nearly online, and surely all the shield covering in the world isn't going to hold up to two Novaks and three Dukes continually firing on them. And there we go. You see the Novaks reprioritizing the forward shield generators, covering that disruptor, the one weapon that's giving Turinturamber any problems right now. And Turinturamber's expanding out. We saw around the bottom of the ditch with decent numbers of Percivals into areas that are currently unguarded now, because this battle has taken everything that JaggeAppliance has had. He's getting hoovered up right now. If only he had managed to squeeze out a Scathis, this game would have gone very differently. Not going straight after the disruptor, going after the shield gens instead, and there's no engineers around here building anymore either. They moved back to help protect the SMD and build shield coverage around that. But now, as the game progresses, that forward section of the base is getting weaker and weaker. Still on the march. Percival's around the bottom of the ditch. They threaten that southern base now. All of those T2 mexes around there. Strap bomber going after the Fat Boy just over the ditch, along with some Siren cruiser support. ASFs from JaggeAppliance come to assist that. I think we can check that out on the main map. That Fat Boy getting just peppered now by strap bombs. Shield downs on 3,400 hit points. One more should do it. No, one more should do it. There it goes. So that's a lovely bit of work from the air there from JaggeAppliance. Back to the main base over here. I'm actually astonished how well these Cybran shields have held out. They're known for being pretty weak, but there they go. It's the first time we've seen clean air above the disruptor, even if it was only for a second. 57 minutes gone. I'm sticking with this because I can't see JaggeAppliance coming out of this. I really can't. I know it seems crazy with how far he's been behind. Or, sorry, ahead, sorry. How far Turinturamber's been behind. Those Percivals on the minimap engaging that southern base and now getting targeted by strap bombers. They're down to just 3 in there now. Oh, there go the shield gens. Now the Duke shells are landing. And once that goes, surely that's it. Strats massing outside the front of Turinturamber's base. And it's free and open. That will be the end of the disruptor. He's not even trying to defend it. It is done. Just waiting for the next round on either the Novaks or the next shell to land from the Dukes. There it goes. That is huge. JaggeAppliance now with no direct fire capabilities to shoot back against Turinturamber's base. All of this under threat. Does he still have his nuke launcher? Yes, he does. And JaggeAppliance capitulates. Not capitulates because that's not a word. He capitulates. And Control Ks and throws it out. Solid turtle play from Turinturamber. I'm sorry, even if you don't like UEF, you have to be impressed with that. That was JaggeAppliances for the taking. He was in a firm, commanding lead, but just couldn't. If he'd have been able to take out one of these bases and hold it, like properly crack it, then that would have been it. But Turinturamber held out, standoff tactics, and came out for a win with the Novaks and Duke combo with a few nukes in there to boot. Solid play, very entertaining. Hope you agree and hope you enjoyed it, guys. There's always more to come from me in the future. Don't forget, if you feel so inclined, you can support me on Patreon or indeed send direct donations to my PayPal. I haven't said thank you to some very generous donations I've had over the last few months. I won't embarrass you by mentioning your names, but you know who you are, and so do I. So thank you so much for those. And thank you to everybody that supports me on Patreon. You mean the absolute world to me. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing and helping to do my little part to keep this game alive for all of us, because my life would be just a little bit duller without it. I don't know about yours. Anyway, until next time, guys, stay well and stay safe. This is Guile, signing out.